Okay, next, organizing and writing your literature. Okay, I would like to caution you. Actually, there's no fixed format to organize and to write your literature. It all depends on your writing style. It all depends on your preference. It all depends on the nature of your study and also your supervisor's preferences. I mean, not really preferences, uh, the style of your supervisor. Yeah, but this is just some basic ideas on how you can organize your literature. Okay, so what we can do is how to organize your literature. There's so many ways you can organize your literature. You can organize your literature according to topical order. Okay, this is from the word topic. Yeah, so meaning that you organize your literature by main topic or issues, yeah, and emphasize the relationship of the issues or the topic to the main problem. So meaning that in your literature, you are going to arrange it according to topic. Yeah, but at the end of the day, at the end of the statement, you need to drive back your audience to the main subject, to the main problem, or to your study context. Because sometimes you write like 1.5 paragraph or even 1.5 page of things of what about one topic. So people might people might uh, uh, cannot remember what is actually your issue. So you have to bring them back to the main things. Yeah, that is topical order. You can also organize or arrange your literature according to chronological order. This is again based on the nature of studies. Yeah. So kalau arts, histories, kebanyakan you akan buat according to chronological order. So you organize the literature by the dates the research was published, or you organize the literature based on the event that has been done. Okay. So far okay or not? So far so good?
Okay, Doctor.
Okay. You can also organize according to problem cause solution order. Yeah. Here what you do, you will organize the review so that it moves from the problem. You might want to present all the problems, and at the end of the day, you might move from the problem to the solution. Again, please guide them back to your study context at the end of the day. This is the common way people do general to specific order. Okay, it is also called the funnel approach. Yeah, it's examine the broad-based research first and then focus on specific studies that relate to the topic. Okay, so you know funnel, right? From big to small, from broad to narrow. Yeah. Another thing is specific to general order. We in this approach, students or people will try to make or will try to discuss specific research studies so conclusion can be drawn. So after you have discussed the specific things and you try to bring it to a more broader concept, a broader approach. Okay. So I believe that every one of you are now involved in literature writing. Which approach that you use, or it's a combination of those approaches? So far, how can we synthesize and analyze the literature? We'll try to do that later, yeah, Asim?
Yeah, during the Q&A.
Okay, so whatever approach you do is okay, but the main thing is when you organize your literature, at the end of the day, please bring back your readers to the main context of your study. So they're still, they will be focused on what you want to study. Is that clear? All right, good. Now, next is writing your literature. Okay. Now, again, how you want to write your literature is there are several factors that will influence you to write your literature or the writing style of your literature. I cannot teach you how you want to write it because it depends on several factors. But these are some of the concerns that you should take into consideration when you want to write your literature. First, use evidence. Okay, what do I mean by this? Okay, when you write, when you interpret any sources, it must be backed up with evidence or citation that demonstrate what you are saying is valid. Okay, at this point of time, we are in no position to say, to claim that that is ours. Okay, you need to provide a literature or reference if you provide us with strong statement. If not, during your viva, the panel will ask you, who said this? Okay, you don't want to receive that question during viva. Yeah, because actually it's not yours, it's somebody else, so you have to put it there. Yeah, understand? Whenever you have a very strong statement, whenever you present something, you need to support the claim. Okay, selective, you might want to select only the most important point, not everything. Okay, the type of information should relate directly to the research problem. This is clear cut. Use quotes sparingly. Okay, do you know what quote is? I believe everyone knows. Okay, some short quotes are okay if you want to emphasize a point, but do not use extensive quotes as a substitute for your own summary and interpretation of the literature. Quotes mean you are taking someone else's statement directly. Okay, for PhD, it's not encouraged for you to do that. You have to find you have to rephrase. Okay, and also I don't know whether you've come to a point that A as cited in B, example, A as cited in B, right? So you need to find the B, you need to find the original author. It's okay for you to use one or two, but not more than that. Okay, the people will question you why you cannot find the original author, especially if the paper is just still in 2020s. Okay, should we cite, alamak, Asim, should we cite the actual source author or paper which we reading? Okay, simple, my answer is you should cite the actual author. Okay, right. Can we move on? Next is summarize and synthesize. Okay, this is the challenging part, especially for us when our mother tongue is not English. Yeah, I do understand this, but this is what you have to do in literature. Okay, you have to summarize and synthesize your sources. You cannot just take author A said this, author B said this, author C said this. If they are talking about the same thing, then what you should do is you have to synthesize. Like if they are talking about the same thing, A, B, C, A year, B year, C year, agreed that blah 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 have a strong connection with blah blah blah. That's how we do. Asim, just now you asked me, right? That's how we do. Synthesize means you try to rephrase, you try to understand the literature and try to cluster them into the same subject matter, and we try to argue based on that, and we try to how do I say? We try to integrate what they have conducted, what they have found in one paragraph. Don't compartmentalize their ideas unless it is very paramount. It's very important for you to have a very specific topic on their study. It's okay, right? But still, you have to summarize. Don't just take things from the abstract and change using synonym. That is the common methods students always do, right? Take from the abstract, go to synonym, you know. Now, that is still plagiarism because the idea of the author is still there. You have to rephrase it, yeah? Now, the most important thing is recapitulate important features of a research study, synthesize it, and relate it to your own work, right? And keep your own voice, and this is important, yeah? While the literature review presents others' idea, your voice, okay, your voice should remain front and center. Okay, even though the idea is from the other authors, but you have to come up with some words, okay, and then you have to rephrase the sentences, so that even though it's others, it is coming from you. It's you who present it. Understand? Okay. For synthesis and summary, and also to practice your own voice too, is another session. If we want to do it now, we will not finish at 12. Yeah, but this is just an eye-opener. This is just a very basic information. When you write your literature, these are the things that you need to be concerned of. Yeah. So far, so good. Everybody. Hey, you have been involved with writing the literature, okay? So I believe that everyone like, what are you talking about? No, it should be okay.
Yes, very clear.
Yeah. The pitch is nice, Dr. Nozona.
Okay, good. Now, next. Okay, what consists a good literature writing? See, good literature writing should combine recent and earlier years of literature. Okay, you should use recent literature to support your problem statement. Okay, now question: why the panel always insists to have a recent literature to support your problem statement? Why do you think they want the recent literature? When you say there's no recent literature, and then your panel will say, are you sure? And at that point of time, I'm not sure. Of course, when panel say, are you sure? You want to say, yes, I'm sure. Suddenly the panel give you the paper, right? So why do you think panel always ask for recent literature to support your problem statement? Who want to help me with this?
The changes of years, changes in years might not relevant at all. Yeah, there may be change of years kan berubah, so it might not relevant to the current years.
Okay, good, good. Anybody else? I have 85 people here.
Maybe
So
because kita tak nak dia outdated information yang dia akan berubah from time to the time.
Okay, good point. Nur Fadila said we don't want outdated information because the market evolves. Okay, it will tell problem is recent. Very good. The research topic has no involvement. Yeah. Okay, especially for our social science. We are under social science, business. Okay, the environment is so dynamic. Yeah. Like for example, today's system, last month's system might not be, might not relevant this month, for example. Yeah, and if you say that your recent literature is 5 years back, panel will ask you, come on, this is marketing area, this is business area, hospitality area. I don't believe that there's no study has been done to look at this similar area. Yeah, because our industry is very dynamic, evolve almost continuously. So there must be studies that have been done, maybe not in Malaysia, but in other countries, right? So you really need to exhaust the literature well, okay? Because sometimes some panels are very good. When they say your literature is not recent, they will go and search. And you will be in hot soup if they can come out, if they can find recent articles. Yeah, so please exhaust the literature well, yeah, and support your problem statement well. 2, it should include current theories underlie the study, related study, or if you do not use theory, it's okay, but you have to find related study that consider a better one and why criticism of the work in the area and rationale or purpose of the study. Okay, sometimes this is not clear in your writing. Why you need to have that literature? Okay, because you do not argue, you do not define, you do not relate from one variables to another variables or for one topic to another topic that can provide us a bigger picture on how it supports your study. So you need to make a connection between all the variables, yeah, and synthesize all relevant literature and construct and reconstruct the idea using your own word. I'm sorry, there's some typo here. Well, it's not typo lah. It's okay. A good review will look at both strengths and limitation of studies conducted, and if possible, to show the gap that requires further investigation and how the present study may help to narrow the gap. And that is, if you can do this, then it will be very good. The audience can understand, all right, why you need to do this study, because there's a gap. How do you come up with a gap? From the previous literature that you have presented. Yeah, all right. Next is always relate to the objectives or purpose of the study. Most importantly, please make sure you write it simple, short, but precise. Okay, and actually this is the challenge for us. Okay, being Malaysian, we are very prone to the Commonwealth system, education system. We like to write long sentences, correct? Because sometimes when we think and we want to write it back, we tend to follow what we have in mind. So it will be very long. When you have long sentences, when I say long sentences, it's like 3 to 4 lines for one thing. Okay, so people might cannot remember what's in the beginning when it comes to the end. So what you need to do is to break up the sentence, make it short. Understand? Make it short, not more than 2 lines, so people can understand well. Because when there's a period, they know, okay, this is something else. Okay, okay. If not, you when there's a period, they can bracket the idea on that particular statement. They will they will observe, they will try to understand it before they can move to the next bracket. If it's very long sentences, they don't know where to stop, and it can lead to confusion. This is another common errors that students always do. always use long sentences. So please break it up. Use short sentences and avoid jargon. Don't be so bombastic. Don't use bombastic words. It doesn't help actually. Okay, you are not writing a poem or I don't know. Okay, just use a simple English, plain English, yeah, that everybody knows about it. Okay, don't think that if you use bombastic word, people will think, wow, so good lah this fella. Sometimes you don't even know what you mean. What do you mean by that? All right. Okay, so far so good. That is so far okay. Are you okay until this slide? Hopefully, we're okay.
Okay, Doktor.
Alright.
Thank you. All right, this is the interesting part, the common mistakes to avoid when you write your literature. Okay, I'm giving you this based on examiner's perspective. Okay, what are the things that panel always comment when they read this section, the literature review sections? Yeah, if you do not understand, just pause me. Okay. All right, so these are the common mistakes. First, sources in the literature review do not clearly relate to research problem. Have you encountered this issue? Okay, for those who are doing their PhD, they have done with their master, or for those who are doing master, they have done with the degree. Have you ever faced this issue? Sometimes you think you have like 30 pages of literature, you know. So amazing how you can find that 30 pages of literature. And how sad it is when the panel say, hey, your literature doesn't relate with your research objective. Okay, so that is like a big batu jatuh kat kepala. You will be like, oh my God, you know. So that is a common mistake. Your literature is not relevant to your research objective. Your literature does not support all the variables. You say you want to study about this variable. Let's say you want to study about customer satisfaction, but there's nothing about customer satisfaction in your literature. So how you want to measure that? All right. So that is one of the common mistake. Okay, the glaring mistake about literature. The next one is the student do not take sufficient time to define and identify the most relevant sources to use in the literature review related to the research problem. See, when you do your literature, you have to be very critical. You have to know which one that you would like to use, which one that will better support your problem statement, because that is the thing that you want to highlight. I know that you have hundreds of literature, but which literature that really support your problem statement? Which literature that will highlight your issue, that can convince your panels or your readers? So these are the things that need to be improved. No doubt, we have a lot of literature, but all the literatures really give a great impact to your study context? So you have to be very careful on this. Yeah, use the most relevant and strong literature to support it. So you really have to study, you really have to understand your log. Look at the log again. So which one is most relevant? Okay, that's the use of the log. Okay, now next, uncritically accepts another researcher's findings and interpretation as valid rather than examining critically all aspects of the research design and analysis. Okay, so in this case, well, we will be very happy to see the findings of previous research is something that we can use to support our study. But yes, the finding seems very interesting. But are the methods used to gain the findings correct? Is the methodology used correct? Did they analyze the data correctly? Remember, if the data is not analyzed or the data collection is not appropriate, definitely you will not get an accurate result. Correct? So you just take their result, but in actual, the method is wrong. So we do have doubt. We should have doubt with their findings. So you need to see, don't just take the findings. You need to see how they do to get the findings. Understand? So when you read the article, you have to read the whole section. Not only the abstract and the future research. Or not only the abstract and the conclusion. No, you have to read everything. When you read article, the most important part, of course, everything is important, but actually when you read the literature, it will give you an idea on how to snowball your sources. Because the author will definitely refer to someone in the similar area. Understand? Okay. Next, relies exclusively on secondary analytical sources rather than including relevant primary research studies or data. Do you understand this? Doctor, I have question. I face the question of the 4th point referral too much. Alamak, hilang. Is more data that is more than 7. Second, as they've been cited recently compared to primary data that is more than 7 years. How we will be able to justify on this? Oh, okay. Well, you can use secondary data. Definitely we will use secondary data, but we should not exclude primary data. We should not neglect primary data. Okay. Sometimes because secondary data, one more thing, you have to be very careful about the source. Okay. Because sometimes trade journals is something people will give their own perceptions about a thing. We can use that, but it's good to have empirical journals to support your argument. Okay, Sharma, your question just now, that is more than 7 years. Okay. How can we do if we do not have recent literature to support our argument? How can we do to overcome this? Any idea? Yes, doctor, that's the issues I'm facing now. Okay, fine, Sharma. Okay, how can we do to justify the secondary data?
I repeat the question now.
Sorry, Dr. Izzat?
I'm trying to understand
question.
Actually.
Okay. How can we do if we do not have sufficient literature to support our study?
Maybe Sharma can unmute her mic so that he can clarify the questions, whatever she has in mind.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Izzat. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for the sharing session, Doctor. Good morning. My question was when I did my defense. So I think one of the panel highlighted a very good point that most of the reference of the literature review was on the secondary data. As for my study, because it was for IPA, so most of the LR on IPA refer to more than 7 years and above. Yeah, so they're asking me why I didn't use Dryer. Dryer is 10 years ago. So if I were to use primary data, more than 10 years ago, as we were taught, we're supposed not to take primary or secondary data that is already more than 5 years. So on that sense, how could we justify that literature review? if we were to use secondary data that refers to a primary data that was 10 years back?
So she is facing a problem in which the secondary data, okay, the journals, the article highlighted the work of a primary data that is of 10 years ago. So supposedly in this era or today in this current environment, so we have to use our very own, maybe our very own primary data to support whatever we have from the secondary data evidences or proof.
Okay, just now I do ask a question. If you do not have those what can you do? Those recent literature. One of the options you can use is to do a brief interview with prominent figures or with relevant figures, established figures, okay? And you can use that brief conversation, brief interviews as part of a statement that could support your study, okay? Especially in qualitative, when you do not, in qualitative, the literature is not doesn't play a major role, okay, because that's the point why we use qualitative, because we have insufficient theories, we have insufficient literature. So what we can do is to back up this is we can interview prominent or established figures in that particular area, and we can quote them in our study. Now, Sharma, can I get back to you?
Yes, doctor.
Okay.
Thank you, doctor.
All right. Okay. Now, next. Common mistake. Does not describe the search procedures that were used in identifying the literature to review. Okay. Is it very important for you to describe this? Do we need to put this in our chapter 2? Well, it's good to have. It's good to have. Why? Why you think it's good to have? Why do you think it's good to have that statement? Alang, korang ni tak nak habis lemau pula. Why do you think it's good to have that statement?
Raja lah, kita raja. Raja nampak macam nak jawab gitu.
Apa?
Raja.
Raja.
Jawab gitu.
Raja.
Maybe to ensure that your process or your flow is the correct method or something like that.
Okay, good. Okay, actually, if you have this statement, it can enhance the readers or panel's confidence on how you get the data. And it also shows your commitment, your effort to gain all these data. Okay, so it's good to have. So panels or readers will feel okay. Yes, this fellow is doing his job well. Yeah, all right. Next, reports isolated statistical results rather than synthesizing them. Okay, this one is also the same thing. In the literature section, you put all the statistical report, but you do not relate it with the things that you need to explain. You just give all the numbers. So what is that? Understand? You have, it's not wrong to give the numbers, but you have to explain to them what does that mean and how does that relate to your study. Okay. And 7 only includes research that validates assumption and does not consider contrary findings and alternative interpretation found in the literature. Okay, what does this mean? Okay, it means that you only take all the good literatures or all supporting literatures. You do not take anything that contradict with your findings, with your assumption. Well, actually, it's good to have the contradicting literature because you can argue on that. That is the starting point for you to argue why your findings is like this, why their findings is like that. Okay, why do you think their findings is not in the mainstream? Okay, so it actually provides us with a good platform to discuss things. So intellectual discussion can be done there. Yeah? Is that okay? All right? I know this is not an easy thing because you have to be involved with it, then only you can understand. All right? But it's okay. I just explain it to you. All right. Next is, okay, I think what's next is just I'm trying to show you the outline, the examples of an outline of chapter 2. Okay, this is just an example. Okay, if you want to follow it, it's okay. If you don't want to follow it, it's okay. But this is just the basic things that you need to have in chapter 2. All right? Okay, let's see. Chapter 2, you will have the introduction, correct? Chapter 2 right up. Introduction. What do we need to have in this introduction? You would like to reiterate or explain the study and chapter purposes. Okay, this is optional but good to have. Okay, what does this mean? This chapter discuss the relevant literature. This chapter discuss all the literatures that have been used in this study. Just a simple statement like that. Okay, and then you want to reiterate the overall purpose of your study. Then you put in the chapter purposes. And what you need to do next is to briefly explain the structure of the literature. Now, please remember, explain according to what have been highlighted in the body. Meaning that if you write the chapter begins with the definition of variable A. So in the subheading, the first one should be definition of variable A. So that because you are navigating the readers, you provide a navigator. So it must be consistent. Yeah. And describe how you obtain all the literature, the sources, the search engines used, the rate of publication, years of publication, prominent author cited, etc. So basically this is in the introduction. So this is the example. Okay. Introduction, this chapter discusses the literature that supported the current study. Literature has been exhausted from, okay, all the relevant, okay, and you put also the source, the engine, search engine, and then the keywords, and then you navigate them. What is to be expected in this chapter? This chapter is made up of 4 sections. The first section explains an overview of TQM, blah, 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 until the end. So when readers read this, they can understand how you deal with your literature and also what is expected in this chapter. Okay?
All right.
Now, for the body, this is again how you want to organize your literature. You can do topical, you can do chronological, you can do broader to specific, okay? Whatever you want to do, but please make sure you have some definition of the variables or background or overview of the scenario that you want to study, detailed explanation of the variables that can lead to a clear indication of hypothesis development or proposition. Okay, here you may want to have background of the variables, what have been studied about the variables, the relationship between the variables, the argument of the variables, etc. See, the organization of ideas depends on author's preference, But most importantly, remember to always remind the readers to the study context or to the purpose of the current study. Okay? And for the conclusion part, what you need to do is to recap what you have read. And this is the time when the log is important. You want to present the trends found in the literature that you have exhausted. So this is the time that you will use log, information from the log. You can provide what are the trends, what are the studies that have been done, what are the focus of methods used, who are the samples, the most frequent sample used. Okay, so with all this information, at the end of the day, you can highlight the gap found in the literature and finally lead the readers to the purpose of your study. This is very important, and this is sometimes that students always fail to do. Okay, they don't highlight the gap and do not lead the readers or panels to the purpose of the study. Okay, all right. Now, so far, those are the things that I want to share with all of you today. Okay,